Welcome back to the Six Pack Dad Tribe podcast. I'm Kris. I am the GM for the tribe and one of the tribe coaches. Been coaching for Tyson over the last 3 years and have helped dozens of guys go through the program. And today I wanted to cover the top 10 protein sources for fat loss. So, first and foremost, why the emphasis on protein? You hear this all over the news right now. People are talking about it everywhere, protein, protein, protein. Why? Because it's becoming kind of a fad where people are just pumping, companies are pumping protein into various products. Why is there a huge emphasis and why there's so much talk on protein? Well, protein is really helpful when you're trying to lose body fat for two main reasons. One, it helps reduce hunger, and two, it helps you retain muscle while losing fat. So first and foremost, with hunger and its help and how it helps reduce hunger, protein per calorie is more satiating than, say, carbs and fat. So, in a fat loss phase, as many of you likely know, we need to eat less in order to burn body fat. We need to eat less than we burn each day. But trying to eat less often comes with increased hunger. And that's the primary reason any diet fails is if it makes you hungry, because hunger ultimately dictates whether we eat or not. So, what we consider in the tribe to be the holy grail of fat loss is if you can get into a caloric deficit where you're eating less than you burn each day, but without feeling that hunger, because that's how it's going to make this fat loss diet sustainable for you. So, eating a high protein diet helps reduce your hunger and helps you sustain a caloric deficit and lose body fat consistently over time. The second most important reason protein is so helpful is it helps you retain your muscle. There's two types of ways that you can lose body fat, or you can lose weight. You can lose weight and it be both muscle and fat, or you can lose primarily body fat. When you cut calories and get into a caloric deficit, but you do not emphasize protein, you will lose both muscle and fat. And so you are experiencing weight loss, but I think it's safe to say most people, when they say they want to lose weight, they want to lose body fat. So there's a way to do that, and that is by increasing your protein. And on top of that, also strength training that will send a signal to your body to hold on to your muscle, and the weight that you do lose will be primarily body fat. So that's why protein is so important. It isn't just a fad. I'm actually a fan of the increase in protein in different products and stuff like that, because more people need to eat more protein, especially with the rise of GLP-1s. People are already naturally eating less, and people are losing a lot of muscle. And so the more protein we can get people, the better. Now, there are good ways to get protein in, and that's what this presentation is for, is to give you the top 10 best proteins. Before we hop into the top 10, I wanted to kind of go over general recommendations for protein intake. For most people, depending on what your goal weight is, you want 1 pound, 1 gram per pound of your goal body weight. So for most guys are looking to be anywhere between 150 and 200 pounds, and therefore need to eat roughly 150 to 200 grams of protein. Really, anywhere in that range is going to be maximizing the benefit of protein in terms of reducing hunger, helping you with muscle retention as well. Um, to add to that, intakes over 200 grams are perfectly fine. It's pretty hard to overeat protein. You could definitely overdo it if you're doing like 400 grams of protein, but I mean, it would be so hard to do that. So I generally say it's pretty hard to overeat protein. So it's not like it's problematic if you go over 200 grams, but oftentimes that's just overkill, and oftentimes that just crowds out other room for other nutrients. So I consider like that 150 to 200 to be a pretty like Goldilocks zone. Last discussion before we get into the top 10 is what constitutes a good source of protein. Because there are many foods out there that have protein in them. One of the common examples that I give to people to show and demonstrate what is not a good source of protein is peanut butter. Peanut butter, for a while, was thought to be like a good source of protein. But it has a lot more calories coming from fat than protein. So per calorie, it's not actually a good source of protein. It has protein in it, but if you were to get all of your protein from peanut butter or nuts, you would overeat calories drastically and actually gain body fat and wouldn't get the benefits of that protein anyways. So a good source of protein, in my opinion, is something that has a food or a protein source that has a 1 to 10 protein to calorie ratio or better. And so what this looks like is for every 100 calories, 10 grams of protein. So if you have, 200 calories of a meal or a protein source, for it to be a good source of protein, needs to have at least 20 grams of protein. 300 calories, 30 grams of protein. It's a really easy way to vet your different foods and protein sources as to whether or not they are a good source of protein. So, of course, peanut butter would not fit into this. I think peanut butter has like 6 grams per 100. I think it's 190 calories, something like that per serving. This is a great way to vet protein supplements and protein rich products. There's a lot of products out there that say high in protein, but if you looked at the protein to calorie ratio, it is not at all. There are some protein bars out there that have a really less than ideal protein to calorie ratio. Again, this is a great way to vet your protein sources, and so use that to your advantage. And it's super easy, knowing the 1 to 10. Again, it matches with the numbers, so 10 for 100, 20 for 200. It's easy to look at a nutrition label, look at the calories, then look at the protein. If it's close, then good. And if it's not, then it's something you probably should avoid if you are in a fat loss phase. So, top 10 sources of protein. Number one is shrimp. I'm a big fan of shrimp. I like shrimp personally. And anecdotally, a lot of my most successful clients are people who really focused on consuming foods like shrimp. It has probably the best protein to calorie ratio of any natural protein source out there. 24 grams of protein per 100 calories. So that's over a 2 to 10 protein to calorie ratio. It tastes great. As far as I'm concerned, some people don't like it. My wife is someone that doesn't like it, and it cooks really fast, so it's great for easy, convenient cooking. Number two is egg whites. Egg whites are also really great in terms of protein calorie ratio, also a 2 to 10 protein to calorie ratio. They are very versatile. You can mix them into various dishes. This is a hack I recommend for people for their breakfasts or any egg meal in general, is crack a few eggs, add egg whites to that. That way you're getting the nutrients from the yolk, because the yolk contains a lot of the healthy fats and nutrients in an egg, and then the egg whites contains all the protein. So you still want whole eggs for the nutrients they provide. But like, let's say if I was trying to lose body fat, then if I'm making a breakfast or a lunch that's based on eggs, I'll have two whole eggs, get the nutrients from those. But that way I don't drive up the calories too drastically. And then to improve the protein to calorie ratio of that meal, I would dump in egg whites. And yeah, great way to go. And again, it cooks into things as well, so you can use it in different recipes. Whitefish is great as well. That's number three on my list. The top two I would recommend is tilapia or cod. 22 grams of protein per 100 calories. Just a great way to mix it up. I don't see a lot of people that I coach eat fish, and fish is a great source of healthy fats, omega-3 specifically. Now, the tilapia and cod aren't super high in omega-3s. The best would be salmon, but salmon's going to come with a little bit more fat, so that's why I didn't include it in this list. But fish is very healthy protein source, and these are super lean and decently versatile. It's just a good way to mix it up. You can make, healthy fish sticks, or just have it over like quinoa or something like that. I just think it's a great one to include that I don't see a lot of people including, but very great in terms of protein to calorie ratio. Number four is non-fat Greek yogurt, 17 grams per 100 calories. So compared to the first three, not as great, but still really awesome. Way better than a 1 to 10 protein to calorie ratio. I included it this high on the list because it's super versatile and you can use it in a ton of different recipes. One of my go-to treats recently has been non-fat Greek yogurt with berries and a little bit of dark chocolate drizzled over. Tastes super great. Number five, this one probably will surprise a lot of people, is bison. A lot of people are used to eating stuff like ground beef, and ground beef is fine, especially lean ground beef like 93.7. But bison is naturally just leaner by default. It has 18 grams protein per 100 calories. It's substituted for beef. It'll taste very similar. It's a little bit more gamey, but you can really substitute it for any ground beef, and you can make burgers out of it. You can make, taco bowls, stuff like that. It's super underrated. I don't see a lot of people include it, but really lean. Chicken breast is like the undisputed goat of fat loss proteins. And rightfully so, it has 19 grams protein per 100 calories, super versatile. It's also very filling. Like, personally, I can't eat a ton of chicken breast. And so that's a good problem to have because it's going to fill you up. It can be hard to eat though. And I often see people over relying on chicken breast and not branching out. So that's why it's a little bit lower in my list. Turkey breast, also really great. I don't see a lot of people doing this. It has 20 grams of protein per 100 calories. It's not as versatile, so that's probably why a lot of people don't include it. It's best in its whole form. That's how it's going to be most filling and give you the most amount of nutrients. But deli turkey breast can work for convenience, but I often see people over rely on deli meats. Deli meats are a really low quality form of protein. They're highly processed, have a ton of sodium and additives. So I tend to try to have people get away from deli meats and consume those meats in their whole form, just because they're gonna have better nutrient profile and they're gonna be more filling. But it's great in turn. And if you're in a bind, throw a turkey sandwich together with some turkey deli meats, pretty lean, and it can work. Tuna, really great source of protein, 22 grams protein per 100 calories. Pretty convenient, especially if it's in a can. It's great choice when eating out and having stuff like sushi. Great way to add a lot of protein to that and consume it in a tasty way. It's so low on my list though because tuna is a fish that's very high in mercury. Good way to understand this is that the bigger the fish is, the more mercury and heavy metals that it accumulates. So smaller fish don't, like a salmon isn't going to have a ton of heavy metals, but the higher up the food chain you go, the more mercury accumulates. And this is contained within that meat. And eating too much of it can cause your mercury levels to increase in your body. And it can be damaging in that way. So you don't want to have tuna every single day, multiple times a day. Most health organizations recommend limiting it to 2 times per week. Now, there are bigger and smaller forms of tuna. So, for instance, albacore tuna is a bigger tuna. You want to limit that for sure. But skipjack tuna is a smaller tuna. You could have more of that. Other fishes like this that have high mercury are things like shark, again, high up the food chain. These heavy metals accumulate and can get passed on to us. So something a lot of people don't know about. I do see people, because tuna is such a great source of protein, over rely on it. And I always have to tell people, like, hey, make sure you're not including that every single day because you don't want mercury poisoning. But it's still a valid source of protein that you can include around twice per week. Whey protein isolate, number 9 on my list. Really great protein to calorie ratio, super convenient. You can mix it into a bunch of shakes. It's great on the go. This is whey protein isolate, by the way, is different than whey protein. It's a leaner form of whey protein, so it has less fat. I think almost no fat in it. But it's so low on my list because it's more processed and it's not a substitute for real whole food proteins like chicken, shrimp, fish, stuff like that. But it's great when you're on the go. Again, I tell all my clients you don't want to over rely on protein supplements because it is food, but it's not in its whole form. And you're going to get better nutrients from whole food sources of protein. You're going to get more full from whole food sources of protein. And so again, we don't want to over rely on supplements because supplements are meant to supplement the diet. So I tell people no more than 30% of your protein should be coming from supplements. You want to have that balance of like 70-30, 70% coming from whole foods, 30% from supplements. So it definitely deserves a place in your routine, but definitely don't want to over rely on it. Number 10 is fat-free cottage cheese. Great source of protein, 18 grams per 100 calories. It's great for mixing into recipes to boost protein. As far as I'm concerned, it's not really great on its own. I know some people really like it and kind of it almost is like a yogurt type thing. They mix it with fruit and stuff like that. I don't like the taste at all. So I wanted to include it because it is great. It's a great way to, again, great for mixing into foods to boost the protein. But by itself, kind of gross to me, but maybe not for other people, but definitely a valid source of protein. So if that is up your alley, definitely include that as a snack, include it with fruit and stuff like that, or cook it into meals. So yeah, that's the top 10. Hopefully that gave you some ideas for foods to include and also some variety. Again, I see people just sticking with one protein too often. You want to have variety in your diet to keep things interesting, to get a variety of different nutrients as well. And yeah, just make sure that you don't get bored eating the same thing over and over again. That's important for long-term sustainability. So hope you learned something. And yeah, that's it.